Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Stephanie Cordes, and she is a career ownership coach. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about it. But if you own a business, which you probably do since you're here, we're going to talk about how to be able to build it, what you need to do, and things that you might not be aware of. In addition to that, we'll also talk about motherhood. So Stephanie, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, well, it's nice to meet you, Charisse. Yes, that's right. I'm a career ownership coach with the Entrepreneur Source. And what I do is work with people actually before they become an entrepreneur. I work with people who are interested in clarifying their goals and learning about business ownership. So I do work with a lot of moms, people who feel like maybe they're not in the right place anymore in their careers and feel like something isn't right and are looking to see, what else is out there for them.
And that is the exact reason I do this podcast. So thank you for being on.
Yeah, glad
Um,
to.
and I think that as a mom, it's a tough business, right? Or it's a tough gig and a thankless job until later. But with women, sometimes we give. And instead of like, you know what, something like here's this one that I'll throw out there. And I'm like, why haven't I done that yet? Like belly dancing, right? I've always wanted to learn how to do belly dancing. And I've used my kids as an excuse why I haven't done it, which it's not an
Yeah.
excuse, right? It's an hour a week, maybe an hour and a half a week. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But when it comes to business, I think we as women, there's always ideas. I wish I had this because it'd make my life easier. I wish I'd have this, or I really want to pursue this, and we don't. And so when you sit down with women, what are some of the first questions that you ask?
So the first questions I ask are, I spend a lot of time asking people what their goals are for the future. And it's so refreshing for people because a lot of times no one's asked them that in a really long time. I actually went through the same process that I take my own clients through. So I remember when I was asked that question, I don't think anyone asked me that since high school. And of course, since high school, I had been through a lot. I'd been married, I had 3 kids. And I had done all the things I thought I was supposed to do, maybe not in the right order, but I got married, had kids, I went to college, and I had a successful career. So I had checked a lot of boxes, but I wasn't happy and things didn't feel right for me. So, what did I want the rest of my life to look like? I hadn't really thought about that. I was just taking it day by day and I wasn't feeling good about things. So, we spend a lot of time talking about what do we want the future to look like across 4 different domains: income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity. So, what is your income now? What do you need or want it to look like in the future? Have you done a good job on retirement savings? What are your goals for that? What do you want your lifestyle to be like? Are you burning it at both ends right now? What would you like that to look like? Let's dream a little bit. If you're a mom, are you missing a lot of things? Is that weighing you down? Are you able to volunteer in your kids' classroom? Is that important to you? I've talked to a lot of people who have missed a lot of things for their kids and they feel really bad about it. So, we talk about things like that. And what do you want your retirement to look like? Most people now don't really envision sitting on the beach or playing golf all day long. They have visions of something a little bit more active, maybe something they want to do with their families. So we talk about those kinds of things. And then we create a North Star statement so that there's something that people can measure all their different opportunities and choices up against.
I love that, the North Star statement, because I remember when I left corporate and then I became a realtor, and my first broker, he sits me down, and I mean, this was a while ago, but still, he's like, well, let's go knock doors. Huh? In 2010 or whatever it was. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting because he made me sit down and he goes, in 3 years, where do you want to be? In 5 years, where do you want to be? And I was not long with that company because it was weird, but I I came across that the other day, and I looked at all the goals, and I had accomplished all of them. And it's interesting because I'd never looked at it before or since, but it's crazy that when you like talk about what you want or you write things down, even if you don't go back and look at it, you've written it down. This is what you want to accomplish. This is something you're committing yourself to, and it does something to you. It really does change. It's like, okay, this is what I want. And so I love that you have this statement that I'm sure you revisit more than never.
Yeah,
And
right.
it gets you on the right path of where you want to be.
It's powerful. And even if you just directionally make sure you're headed that way, sometimes you might have really big goals.
Yeah.
Like, I want to retire and own a BRB in, Jamaica. Okay, that's a really huge goal for some people. And you're going to need to take a lot of little steps to get there. So maybe your very next step doesn't feel like it's really getting you there. But if directionally it's helping you get there, that's a good thing. So we keep that in mind that it helps you directionally keep on the right track. So I think you're right. I think it's really powerful. Some people like to print them out and hang them on their refrigerator or the wall. Other people just like, oh, thanks, I'm going to hang on to this. But just giving it power by writing it down and giving a thought to it. I think that is really powerful. It also gives you power to and permission to dream a little bit. And I think we forget to dream as we get older, but that's important too.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm not going to put a pin too much into that balloon that you just gave about the BRB in Jamaica. But if you're thinking of owning something outside the US, we need to talk before you do that. So
And probably
speaking
not in
from experience,
Jamaica.
yeah, I was going to say, like,
Yeah,
speaking from experience, whew, yeah. Anyway, off
right,
topic.
right.
So how long does that process take when you're working with somebody and creating that statement and then getting started? How long does that take?
Well, when I first someone reaches out to me and then we have an initial call and see if it makes sense for us to work together. And I explain how I'm a free resource and how that business model works. And then we set time to get together for an hour then after that. And in the meantime, I give people credentials to log into my portal, and I've got some great tools in there that they can use to prepare for our next conversation. That can happen pretty quickly. I book that hour on my calendar. We help book it together. And then they prepare with the tools that I have in the portal. We have something called the DISC assessment that is, owned by another organization, TTISI. Millions of people have taken the DISC assessment. It really helps me get to know people faster. People really enjoy that, and we do what we call a true false narrative with that tool to help make sure people, really agree with what the tool says before we put too much weight into it. And the vast majority of people do, but even if they don't, the tool helps me get to know people faster, even if it's them disagreeing with the tool. And that's what I really want. I need to know my clients, really well. Um, and then we also have some homegrown tools like the U 2.0, which that's really where people get to dream and start putting pen to paper, thinking about their strengths and their opportunities and what's important to them. And then on that 1 hour call, we get to really talking through all those things. And by the end of it, I usually have enough information to draft that North Star statement. And then on the following call, we start talking about it.
That is so good because I think a lot of times people just they talk, right? And I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I think that that's great because that's a good step. But the next
Mhm.
step is, okay, now let's take some action. And so
Yeah.
let's make sure that this is something you really want to do and that's experience that can guide them through it so that there's some things that you might not even consider that you're like, oh, you know what? I thought I wanted to do that, but let's come back over here. And so being able to, it sounds like you have all these tools and things that can help guide people through really drilling down to what they're interested in and what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. On our second call, we talk about what people's skills are, the transferable skills, what their business interests are. Because once we've sorted out what their North Star goals are, then we look at the different vehicles of success. Like, how can you meet those goals?
Yeah.
So, for some people, they're really better off in the W-2 world. Maybe that's what they learn, or they're better off as a 1099, right? Because for everyone, business ownership is not the right answer.
That's so true.
But what I do is provide provide coaching that helps them learn and just provides information so that they have all of the information so they can make a good choice. So they can learn about business ownership in a safe place because there's a lot of different paths to business ownership. So as I said, a lot of times people learn that, okay, business ownership is not for me. And I think that's okay because they'll never look back and wonder, would that have been right for me? They already know the answer. They took the time to learn about it. So other paths to business ownership, or let's finish off different ways to meet your goals. Maybe in order to meet those goals they set up, could be investing in real estate, like with you, or in the stock market. Those are also paths to perhaps meeting their goals. And then if they want to, investigate into business ownership, they could do things like some people buy things and sell them on Amazon, or they make things and sell them on Etsy. Or if there's a business down the street that's for sale, you could look into buying that and do the work on that. Some people start like a passion business, like a baker might start a bakery, or some people start like a microbrewery in their garage. So those are paths too. And so another path would be there are some people that like to learn about, what if I started a new iteration of a business model that's already running successfully across the country? So that would be franchising. So that's something that we take a close look at too. There's different business models, different industries. So we spend some time looking at that too, letting people take a deep dive on specific businesses and seeing if that could be a good fit, a different way that they could meet their goals that they had never considered before, like you said.
Mhm. And that's the thing is there's so much opportunity and there's so many
Mhm.
different ways that you can go and being able to talk to somebody like you who's experienced in that. I think
Mhm.
that that's where people don't really know. I want to get started. I've always wanted to do this. Great. Okay, let's talk about that. Oh, well,
Mhm.
and then it goes down this whole other path that you might not have even been able to see. And so
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
part that, yeah, I mean, I talk about with real estate investing, there's 8 different ways. If you have a lot of money to if you have zero money and you can get started any way you want. But a lot of people don't know that. And so
right.
that's where helping walk through that to really pinpoint. And I also like that you said, entrepreneurship might not be for you. You might be a W-2 employee. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's okay. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And that's actually what I really love about the work that I do is that I'm providing education. I'm not selling things. I'm letting people learn about things that they've never learned about before. It's exactly what you said. People think you need to have $1 million.
Mhm.
People think that it's only for certain kinds of people. You need to be type A, or, I mentioned the DISC assessment. We don't do that because there's a certain type of personality or a certain result that yields a good business owner. Any personality type could be a good business owner. That's not why we do it. It just comes down to, certainly franchising comes down to being willing to follow a system. It comes down to being coachable, and also your ability to withstand. I think with business ownership, you also have to have a certain understanding of business principles and being willing to learn. So, yeah, there's just so much to learn about it. And so being able to give people an opportunity to learn about it in a low pressure environment, I think is a blessing for a lot of people.
I love that. And my next question was going to be what personality style. So thank you
Yeah,
for explaining that. That
yeah.
I think that sometimes people put themselves into this pigeonhole. And if you like go and research a lot of the big entrepreneurs, they were high school dropouts or they were college dropouts
Yeah.
and so I like one person that I coach very closely with and heavily, I'm sure that his teachers wanted to strangle him when he was a kid, and, as well as his mom. But he is a genius in what he does. And I think like that is his talent and that is his goal. And so for anybody watching and listening, just because somebody's told you you're horrible at this, you're bad at this, does not mean that's true, first of all. And second of all, that maybe another path in that same industry could be your thing. So try, get started.
Yeah,
So I love that.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So let's talk about mindset because I think that that's probably the biggest hurdle that anybody ever has to come overcome in order to
Yeah.
get started in a business. And quite frankly, I have the same issues. And so,
Mhm.
what is the biggest mind shift that you see professionals need to make to explore their next thing?
Well, when it comes to just being willing to explore, you have to be open to possibilities. So you have to allow yourself to be open to learning about something new. If you're not open to that, then explorations can't be successful. You just have to be open and willing to learn. Then, when it comes to actually being able to take the plunge, I think that you have to believe, if you look at historically how you have to be honest with yourself. So if in the corporate world you're a high performer, why would you think that suddenly you would no longer be successful in whatever you have done before? So, we talk through, your historical performance and if you have good ethics and if you're a hard worker and okay, so all of these things are true. Okay, so moving forward, if you move forward with this business, these things will continue to be true about you, yes?
Mhm.
Right? Why would they stop being true? It is a lot about believing in yourself, but sometimes you need to take a historical look at your performance and being honest with yourself um, in order to believe, how you will perform in the future. So I think that that's really important too. Um, I think that's a really important mindset is to look back at past achievements and believe that you can reproduce these in a new environment and sometimes in a new industry as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I like that you said that because sometimes, again, that imposter syndrome hits
Yeah.
hard. And I mean, there's four different types of worker if you want to group them into that. And so you have the visionary, and then you have the manager, and then there's other words I don't want to use, but like some people, like my husband, I love him dearly, but he just wants to go to work, punch a clock, and then leave and not have to worry about it when he walks out that door. That is not
Mhm.
me. And so he
Mhm.
can very happily do the same job for 20 years because that's the type of person that he is in personality. And he quit
Mhm.
a couple years ago. And so I was expecting him, and this was like kind of during COVID too, but I was expecting him to just jump in like me, like, hey, we're an entrepreneur now. So you get up in the morning, you get your stuff done. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, I can sleep in. And oh, yeah. Like there's not the discipline. And so I think that that's something we also need to touch on is the discipline on your
Yeah.
mindset that like you have to drive it because it's your
Right.
baby. And if you're
Yeah.
not, who is? And
Right. Yeah.
so
I
can you
think
talk
that's
about, yeah.
I think that's totally true. And I keep this on I don't know if it'll be backwards or not. Does this read normal to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so this is something that my son got in fourth grade, and he's a
Really?
he's a sixth grader now. Yeah, isn't this amazing?
Yeah.
So I love that they're teaching this in his school. They actually have like a practice Shark Tank. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so they're teaching entrepreneurship as a real option, and they have all of these traits on here, which I love. I just love that they're teaching this. They're talking about it as a real option in the future and what the traits are: determined, creative, problem solver, positive attitude. I love that they're talking about this as a viable option. And I think you're right. All those things are really important. You have to be really self-directed.
mhm.
And one of the things I talk about with my client is they get an opportunity to do owner validation.
Hmm.
So they get to meet with other owners and ask them about their experiences in the business and what a day, actual day really looks like, directly from other owners. So those are really great data points to have. And, what do you wish you would have known? They also get to learn about all the initial and ongoing training and the support that they get, in the business. So I always tell them it's so important to be honest with yourself because the franchisor will tell you what it takes to be successful. And then you have to be honest with yourself if you can do it, if you want to do it,
Yeah.
right? Because they are required to share with you all the financials of the business, the actual revenue that's generated, and they typically show it to you in quartiles. So you'll see like the top 25%, the middle 50, the bottom 25, and you need to be honest with yourself. Now, you may have been a top 25 in their corporate world, now, to start in a new business, you might not be in the top 25 for a while, right? Maybe you're going to be in the middle 50. Are you going to be okay with that, right? And you're going to aspire for that top 25. Now, in the corporate world, if you were in the bottom 25, don't suddenly think you're going to be in the top 25. It's time for a reality check here. You need to really be honest with yourself. So when you hear what it takes to be successful in each of these businesses, are those tasks that you're willing to do? It does require a lot of honesty with yourself. And there's some business models you may be willing to do what it takes, and every business is not for every person, right?
Yeah. Well,
There's,
and it, being honest with yourself, I think there's also, you could try to be honest, like, oh, well, I'm going to, but let's not just be honest because you might think that you're being honest with yourself. Let's look at your past behavior and performance
yeah,
and your habits. Because if
yeah,
one day I woke up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a schedule every single, like every hour of every day is going to be scheduled out, which in fairness, it's kind of become that. But like 5 years ago, I would have like run away, right? And
yeah.
so I think that that's the honesty as well that you have to have as the reality of like Jimmy John. I listened to him speak and listening to how he got started, which is an amazing story in and of
Mhm.
itself because he was kind of flunk out of high school and he didn't want to go to military school. So he said, "Hey Dad, will you lend me?" I think it was like 25,000 or something. I don't even remember. But the story. And so he 24/7 lived, breathed, ate, slept at his company. And then he was able to
Mhm.
build it up. And so when he has people that come and want to franchise with him, he
Mhm.
says, like, are you prepared to like give it 24/7? You have to be here all day, every day for 7 days a week. Like, are you willing to do that? And some will say yes, others will say no. And he's like, you will not be successful if you don't. And
Right,
that's the conversation is, are you willing to put that much effort?
right.
I interviewed a lady recently that actually just aired on the podcast that she interviewed 900 people and she didn't do any marketing, like Facebook marketing or anything. She just contacted 900 people on Facebook and had conversations with them. And then
Mhm.
she got her one client. And then she got two or three that same day. But 900 people, are you willing to get 900 rejections before that one? Yes.
Right.
That's the type of thing, to be honest with yourself. Can you handle that? And are you okay with
Yeah,
that? Because if you're
right.
not, then you got to look at a different business.
Exactly, exactly. And so that's one of the reasons why I spend so much time with my clients, making sure I understand what their goals are and what kind of lifestyle they want.
Yeah.
So if I had a business like Jimmy John's where I know they want someone who's all in, that's going to put in 40 to 60 hours for the first, let's say, 2 to 5 years, there are people like that. But if I have a client who's looking for something that they're going to put in 30 hours, maybe the first year or two, and then hopefully drop down from there, I'm not going to show them that
Yeah.
type of opportunity, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And I don't want them to get themselves in trouble and get excited and say, oh, sure, I'll do that. This sounds great, because I know it's not going to work out for them. So that's why, because people can get excited, right? They fall in love with the concept and they'll say yes to things they shouldn't say yes to. So I try to help people avoid, people do fall in love just like with a person with a certain concept because it's a great business. I almost did it myself.
Mhm.
I looked at an opportunity that I knew it was an amazing business. I did all the validation. I understood the value proposition. I knew it was just going to be a hit in my area. It was so successful other places. And then my coach said to me, she said, Stephanie, this is a great business, which is why I showed it to you. And I knew you would love it and understand it. And she said, but actually, when I think about what you're dealing with as a mom,
Mhm.
and I had a chronically ill child and other things going on, she said, I know you were looking for something less intense though than your corporate life. And knowing that one so well, I'm actually not sure how that would work given some of the other things that you told me. And actually, I take a seat back because I had started to fall in love with it. And it was corporate Stephanie was like, I'm going to make this work and it's going to be amazing. And I could have, right? But I was forgetting about the lifestyle that I wanted to have. I wanted to get away from that. Just corporate, successful Stephanie was like, oh, I'm all in. I'm going to kill this thing. It's going to be amazing. But I would be in just the same boat that I was in the corporate world, unhappy about, struggling with the same personal things that I was struggling with. So I needed my coach to kind of pull me back for a minute. And I had to think about it. She said, well, just think about it and we'll talk about it next week. And I came back. I was like, You're right. It is awesome, but it's not the right one for me. I needed that. And so that's the kind of coaching, that we give, helping people just remember as they get excited about different opportunities, pull them back against their goals and say, I'm glad you love it. I just want to make sure you're thinking about your goals too. And she's right. I had lost track of my goals there for a minute.
That's such a good story, though, because it shows the value of, we're going to talk about motherhood right now, but also as a coach, that she knows you
Yeah.
well enough and you have that relationship to be honest with each other. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about momhood.
Yeah.
Leaving a corporate, and I'm not going to say it's 9 to 5, a steady gig that
Yeah.
you get a steady paycheck, and then becoming an entrepreneur as a mother, because it sounds like you left. One of the reasons for me, my kids, they were going through some issues. And so
Mhm.
me being gone 60 or 70 hours a week wasn't working anymore, for many reasons. And
Mhm.
so with that transition, like, how did you handle it? And what made you just decide? And how long did it take, I guess, for you to decide, okay, you know what, I need to make a switch?
Took a couple years. I had a child that had an acute medical issue, and then that acute issue was dealt with. It became a chronic issue. And so it took once that acute issue happened, I try not to disclose too much because it's her story to tell. Once that happened, it was just a huge ripple effect in the family when something acute and major happens to one of your kids in high school. And she was the eldest, and I had two younger children. And once we dealt with that acute issue and became stable, it became a chronic issue. And that affects everyone in the family. And I had a great boss at the time in the corporate world, and people even donated time to me so I could have time off, which was amazing. But then after that, you have this chronic issue, and it affects everything and everybody. And I knew immediately, as soon as I got the diagnosis, that I had no interest in climbing further up the corporate career, but I still needed to work and I still wanted to do a good job. And so after a couple years of dealing with this chronic issue, my own health started to suffer, and I developed my own chronic issue. I also worked at home, which was a massive blessing, but also I could never get away, if you will. And that was took its toll in its own way, I think, especially if your children are there all the time. Um, So it just became really, really difficult. And I felt like the only thing I could do was get another job somewhere else. Like it's the only choice I could make, really. So I was just frustrated, and I knew I wouldn't be any happier anywhere else, but I did want to make a change because the only thing I could change would be to get a different job. So as I was applying for jobs, I met a coach who does what I do now. And so that's when I started exploring. I didn't even She came to me. I met her on LinkedIn, how I meet many of my clients now. And she opened up the door to this world to me. And she said, did you ever think about opening your own business? And I said, well, sure, but I don't have any good ideas. Like I didn't invent like the Ring camera or, something like that. And which people say to me all the time now, which makes me laugh. I said, boy, that's what I said too. I don't have any good ideas and I don't want to be a consultant. And I had done a lot of consulting. I knew I could live off that, the uncertainty of that. And so she introduced this idea to me, and that's how it happened. I just lucked into it. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't consider it an option. So I was unhappy for a few years, is the bottom line. I was looking for another job for no good reason other than I was just unhappy and felt it was like it was the only change I could make in my life that would give me some distraction. And once I started exploring, I found something within 6 weeks that I thought was amazing and right for me. And then I waited about 6 months. I was saving up money. I was waiting for a particular bonus to hit. And then I made the switch.
That's great. And that's
Yeah.
the other thing, is to have a plan. You don't need to
Yeah.
just like up and quit.
No.
When my financial planner said to my husband, "Oh yeah, you can retire," because we had rental incomes, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. And so my financial planner, he's like, "Well, I wasn't meaning like right now," and he did. He went back to work, but I think that that's the part, is to have a plan and
Yeah.
to I mean, many people do. They jump with both feet and they go all in. And that way like, I think it's burn your bridge or burn the bridges so you can
Mm,
go back. But other people, I think every single person is different, and especially your
yeah.
situation and your family situation. But I love that you recognize that, I mean, our children really do influence us a lot. And
Yeah.
um, getting back to like originally your North Star, what are you doing this for? And like I'm learning to break up with my laptop.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is like I preach on this show a lot that like what are your boundaries? What do you need to do? And yet I was so busy with all these different things I was trying to do. And I'm like, where is it getting me? Am I happy or am I just feeling overwhelmed and stressed? Because I always feel like
mm,
there's more that I need to do. And so yes, I still have as many things, but I'm not prioritizing where I have to do everything every week. And so I think that that's where, when my kids are home, my laptop is going to be shut because they're growing up so fast and I'm not going to be able to, I can't undo time. And so
mhm.
that's the part that if you can't take it back. And I
Yeah.
don't want to be my face in my laptop when my kids are home.
Yeah.
That's just not where I want to be right now. And so that's something that I think we really do have to be honest with ourselves and take the inventory is what am I doing this for? And is it
Right.
bringing me joy or is it just so that I can say that I'm doing it? So,
Yeah, I wish I would have done it sooner. I really do. I mean, I don't beat myself up over that because it's useless to do so, but I wish my coach would have found me sooner. I really do. Yeah.
wow. Well, if you were sitting on a park bench and a 9 month pregnant woman came up to you and you're talking to her and this is her first time mom, what
Mm.
advice would you give her if it could be anything? Because your kids are now adults, and so you have the gamut. What is one piece of advice that you would give her as a mother?
Oh, gosh. Enjoy it. Enjoy every second.
Mhm.
Yeah, just soak it all up for sure. And I do feel like I did that as much as I possibly could. I feel that I did all the little things because I had a mother-in-law who was always telling me that she let her mother-in-law have all the good stuff and she regretted it. And so she wanted it with all her grandkids. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm soaking up all that. I'm soaking all that up now. I don't know if I'll have grandkids. You don't know. You're
Yeah,
not promised the future. So I tried to soak up all those moments.
I love that. I'm
Yeah.
laughing because I have a 12-year-old and I tease that she's going to give me grandkids before the first four because it's not going to happen. It's not true. But it's not the same as when we grew up where it's just the culture is different. And so it's true. Soak it up. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. If our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can go to stephahead.com. So my name, STEPH ahead.com, and that'll take you right to my contact page. And I love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.
And Unbreakable Moms, we talked about a lot of stuff today, but finding your North Star, if you need some guidance on that, then please reach out because that is really the first step in making sure that you're even on the right track. And if you don't know what to do or you don't know how to get there, then please take the time because that could save you a lot of time in the long run.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
much time. Go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.